This afternoon with Vice Mayor Jay Kramer. Thank you for your time, Jay.
Absolutely.
With an election coming up, I thought it would be helpful to sit down and talk about the issues in the election from your perspective and what you think is important, what you'll be campaigning about, what the issues are that the voters really need to focus on as they make their decision in this election.
Well, this is an election that's kind of got to bring us back to running the city again. We've spent a number of years, it seemed like, going through an exercise of seeing whether the public wants to sell off Vero Beach or whether to keep Vero Beach. Interestingly enough, I don't think it was really all one way or the other. It's been a pretty rough last 4 years. My hope is that people are kind of tired of it and want to get back to running the city again. We've kind of had an agenda that really didn't pay attention to taking care of our neighborhoods, taking care of our recreational department. We've kind of missed a lot of opportunities to help clean up the lagoon. It's just time to get back to doing those kind of things.
You speak of missed opportunities to clean up the lagoon. Could you talk more about that?
Well, when I say missed opportunities, I mean we've touched on it. For example, the baffle box program, which keeps a lot of the larger items out of the river during rain events. We could have accelerated that a lot greater. We could have worked on the hybrid plan, with the septic systems. These are things that had staff put these things on the front burner and been a priority, we probably would have had a head start on these things right now. This last year, with the FP&L issue really dying down, we actually got our head above water on these issues, and we worked with the county, with the Dodger Town land. I know that sounds innocuous probably to the voters, but that is kind of a part of the process where we sell the Dodger Town land, it frees up money for public works, which frees up money to put in the baffle boxes and helps Indian River Lagoon. Before, when the utility issue was at the forefront, we didn't have the time to look at those kind of things. Now that that's kind of going away, we do have the time to look at that. We do have time to put these in the priority list. Same goes for the septic systems and getting those off the river. Now we have the time to look at that.
I understand that the utility issue is before the PSC and in the courts, so there's not a whole lot more to talk about there, except that there are steps the city can take to lower rates. What's your view about what can be done?
Well, we are in the process of lowering the rates. Since the last election, we've started to turn the corner, started looking at ourselves, not necessarily as a commodity to sell, but actually as a utility that we need to run and run well. So far the rates have come down. I believe we were at 130, now we're back at 123, 124. There's no signs that we need to increase that anymore. We are doing a rate study to make sure that the rates we're charging are sufficient and we're charging across the board evenly. Coming close on those heels would be the optimization study. Keep in mind, I believe it was 3 years ago we wanted to do this optimization study. We did it on the water and sewer. It was tremendously successful. My hope is that we do this on the electrical utility. We can drive rates down some more. Some of the projects that we've mentioned, the Emerson tie line, removing the power plant. That was, these were ideas that had happened years ago, but now we're finally able to act on those. And I think it's going to result in some savings quite a bit.
You mentioned the hybrid system. Where is the city at in moving in that direction, the hybrid system for the sewer?
The advantage of that hybrid system is that you put these pumps within the septic system, and then the city would install a pretty small little tube. They could just push it under the road instead of tearing up the roads, which makes the installation cost magnitudes less than a sewer system. And that would prevent a lot of the liquids from the septic systems from leaching off into the Indian River Lagoon. So our primary goal is to make sure that we stop that leaching going into the lagoon.
Going through the budgeting process, not everybody gets everything they want. So if you went through that process again, what would you want to revisit?
I would have liked to have seen a little more money put towards recreation, but you know, all of our events that we have, you know, really do speak loudly of who we are. And I think the identity of who we are in investing in our looks is very important. You know, you come into Vero Beach and you know, you just get a good feeling about it. You do have a canopy, you know, with trees. You have bushes that are manicured, lawns. It's, you know, there's nothing wrong with investing in that. I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more there, and especially on the west side of town. But well, I don't know if there's anything more on the budget side. I'm typically pretty conservative on it. I don't like to push it. But I do know there are certain things that enforce the character of Vero Beach, and you know, the looks are one, you know, the police department is the other.
One other candidate for city council was on local radio today, essentially well, this is a slight exaggeration, but accusing you of taking a step that would bankrupt the pension plan. Hear your side of that story, if you will.
Well, it's, you know, what had happened was during the budget season there was a COLA increase, cost of living increase for the pensioners that were that had retired before 1998, and you know, we hadn't. It's kind of a hit and miss. Sometimes we do it, sometimes we don't. You know, this particular time we had a real large health care cost, and those pensioners got about a 9 to 10% increase in their health care. Well, if you do the math, and these are people that retired 1998 and before, you know, these are people in their 80s and 90s. They don't have the ability to go out and work, you know, find another job to deal with that increase. And, you know, we just didn't think that was fair. And when you did the math, you know, you look at the pension amount that you'd be spending, it was like $16,000, $17,000. Well, 16 or 17,000 of, you know, $6 or $7 million that you pay comes out to about 1/4%. It's so minuscule that I don't think you'd ever notice it. But you know, the pensioners would notice it. You know, these are people that are, you know, they're World War II veterans, they're Korean veterans. They, you know, they're your elders that pretty much, you know, worked in the city, built the city. You know, I think they're pretty good people. And to just callously throw them off and say, you know, we're going to stick you with that 10% health care cost, but we're not going to help you out on the cost of living adjustment, I just didn't think was right.
Okay, so that's what that was about.
Yeah, you know, people are important. If you can't keep people first and foremost, I don't know why you're up there serving.
What's your motivation to serve another 2 years?
Well, sometimes you have motivation for projects that you want to do. And of course, there's several projects that I'd like to finish up, mainly in recreation, and also the business improvement district downtown. I'd like to see that off and running. And sometimes that you have motivation to prevent things from happening. You know, I for one am kind of tired of a council that just doesn't do anything but try to sell off bits and pieces of Vero Beach and raise my taxes. You know, I jumped in the water up to my neck, up to my ears, you know, that first time I ran. And the only thing that kept coming on the agenda were items that were going to, you know, raise my taxes and decrease the quality of life here in Vero Beach. And you know, I just want to make sure that movement, that kind of desire has ran its course and is done.
There's a charter referendum before voters this November that would, as I understand, set aside, protect Crest Lawn Cemetery and a long list of public lands from being sold or leased without voter approval. Are you supporting that charter amendment?
Absolutely. You know, the land belongs to the people of Vero Beach, and you know, for any given meeting, just 3 council members just to decide, well, we're going to sell this to our best friends down the street, and you know, so long, see you later, Crest Lawn Cemetery. You know, that just doesn't sit well.
The county's utility director came before the council last week and gave an update on the county's efforts to increase recycling rates. And as a part of that, he asked the council to consider joining with the county in bidding out garbage collection. The city currently has its own utility, the solid waste utility. What are your thoughts about the county's request?
Well, I think it's a great idea, and when the county's ready for us to go out and do all the trash collecting, have Vero Beach do the trash collecting for the county, we will be ready for it. You know, but and until then, you know, they've got to get their act together, and I don't think we consider it until they can do that. You know, we're cheaper than the county, we do it better. They need to be coming to us and asking for us to take over their operations, and then when they're ready to do that, I'll support it.
I was looking at the rates. Vero Beach customers get twice a week pickup and are paying slightly less per month than customers of either of the county's vendors,
Right.
Treasure Coast Refuge and Waste Management. Both of them are charging more per month than the city.
Well, you know, I think you can kind of gather my opinion on this whole thing. I think it's you know, the county just another way to kind of get Vero Beach out of the business type of thing. But I explained this to another news reporter. I says, you know, what happens is that the economy of scales in trash pickup relies in density. If you're doing trash collection in a higher density of an area, it's cheaper. You don't have to drive as much. You know, you don't spend as much time going from place to place, so it's cheaper in the higher density areas. So the idea that utility director would come and say, well, you know, economy of scales, you'll get a cheaper rate. What happens is that the average distance between a customer across the county would increase from our perspective, and would decrease from the county's perspective. So we would end up paying more, but the county residents would end up being paying less. So the county would enjoy the scale of economies, we would enjoy the diseconomies of scale. I just can't go that direction.
You mentioned the downtown enterprise fund. Could you talk more about that?
Well, the business improvement district, what that was it wasn't exactly tax incremental financing, but it was a program that we would lock at the tax rate in the downtown area at a certain level, and then as properties increased in value, the increase in value then would be designated to be reinvested into that district. So really what happens is that the first several years you don't get an awful lot of money, but you have to lay the groundwork for your sunshine meetings, so that you know, the community has a board that decides where the monies are going to be spent for what purposes and when. And right now we're in that phase of putting a board together such that when the monies start to come in from a property increase, that they get allocated for projects within that area.
Question right now about forming a utility authority. Do you see that going forward, and what's your view on whether that would be a benefit or not?
Well, undoubtedly it'd be a benefit. You know, throughout this whole thing, you know, you've seen a lot of people that have complained about not having representation. You know, a utility authority would give you representation. And you know, as far as the city's concerned, I don't think there's any animosity with sharing the management responsibilities of the utility with the county ratepayers. I really don't. You know, my concern is just that the utility authority is started on solid ground for the purposes of correctly managing the utility, and not just a stepping stone to, you know, further the cause of a special interest group.
You're talking about some folks that might continue to push for the sale?
Well, yeah, I say that because I know there's a lot of people out there that don't really grasp the situation very well, and seem to think that you know, if we just fight a little bit harder, if we just you know do a little bit more, that we can get the sale done. And you know, the problem is that this sale is probably further from being done than it probably ever was. You know, the parties are just not there anymore.
I wanted to ask you about that because one of the folks in the race comes before the council at practically every meeting and tries to make the case that if you and Richard Winger and Amelia Graves were only pushing harder for the sale, everyone in Vero Beach would now be on FPL rates. So,
Well, you have that individual that comes before the council, probably there to try to garner votes and to capture the public's desire to see the sale go through, rather than admit that the sale is really gone. You know, when I sit there and go through all the variables that need to happen, you know, FPL, Sam Forrest has already said we're not taking a contingent liability. Eric Sillagy says, you know, hey, we'll split the difference. He counter-offered, which was, you know, I think you remember that contract that, you know, it specifically says unforeseen costs are to be borne by FPL.
mm-hmm.
They weren't supposed to do that. The FMPA members are more than agitated with this whole process. I don't see them doing anything. And most importantly of all, you know, the Orlando Utility Commissioners basically just gave us a statement saying, hey, you know, buying these entitlements is in conflict with our bonding resolutions or our bonding contracts. And so what has happened is that you know, all of the big pieces of this contract have just, they've fallen away.
Assuming you win re-election and have another 2 years on the council, what would be some of the things you most hope to accomplish?
I'd really like to get a good start on taking the septic systems off of the ground. You know, when I first came to Vero Beach, you know, the fishing was pretty darn good. It really was. Then came the hurricanes, and then things have just never been the same. And I think, you know, our town is very much connected with the water, and cleaning that up would be immense. I'd also like to do a lot with recreation, get that back going again.
You get involved in some of the recreation fundraising efforts, don't you?
I enjoy it. You know, I mean, we, you know, the last big one we did was was it the group that saved Christmas, I think was what the newspaper article read.
Right.
But we did the Christmas on Rural Palm Point to keep the fountains open. I think we ended up making enough money to keep the fountains open on another day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, recreation is something that, you know, everybody enjoys. And you know, I think once you get involved with recreation and you see the number of our people out there use the services just all the time, I think you are more and more encouraged to do it. You know, I know we've had awful lot of the senior citizen groups that use the community center. You know, we've got a lot of the water aerobic guys. They're a great bunch of people.
Out at Leisure Square.
At Leisure Square, you know, the aerial antics, the day camps, you know, a lot of the sports programs. It's you know, the amount of people that it reaches is really immense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important for the community. I really do.
So you have more than a few things on your plate with the downtown business district, education, not education, but recreation, and then moving forward with the step system.
It's you know, it's a busy job if you I think if you do it right. You know, my typical day is I'll probably spend about an hour or two every morning at the city. You know, just, you know, running errands for people. You know, it's good grief. People call me that, hey, I got a light bulb out, you know, a street light out. You know, and you do that. Or if you got a new business in town and they've got some problems trying to get some permitting through, and you'll just sit down and you'll go through, you know, the steps. A lot of times, you know, a council person is just that person that you can call up to just kind of help, you know, nudge the process along. And, you know, I really enjoy doing that. I want to make sure that, you know, the city government of Vero Beach is not an impediment to what people want to do around here. But, you know, the city of Vero Beach needs to make sure everybody plays by the rules, but it doesn't have to be painful while you do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned a couple hours every day doing that. You must be spending some other time on this job, it seems to me.
Well, I do. I really enjoy finding out all of the facts and knowing what's really going on. You know, maybe in another life I probably would have been a good private investigator, I don't know. But, you know, there's a lot of moving wheels in the city. And a lot of people doing a lot of good things. I just want to make sure that we get things done and get it done by the rules.
Well, I thank you for your time today, and I wish you well in your campaign, Jay.
Well, we'll see. You know, I hope people get out there and vote their conscience.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.